All right, what's up, guys? How we doing? I just saw Terrifier 3, and oh my god. So Arthur Clown is once again resurrected, and he's set to unleash absolute chaos on the residents of Miles County once again, but this time, it's Christmas Eve. Just a little holiday spirit. And this movie is once again written and directed by Damien Leone, starring Lauren Rivera, David Howard Thornton, and Antonella Rose. Now, this was easily top 5 most anticipated movies of the year for me. I am a huge fan of Terrifier 2. I think that's one of the greatest slasher movies of all time. It gave me everything I pretty much always wanted. Terrifier 1 was good. The shoestring budget that they had, I think it was a fucking miracle that they were able to make a movie like that and have it be effective. And then All Hallows Eve, I'm not really a fan of. It's not really a Terrifier movie, but that's when Arthur Clown was first introduced. So I was very excited to see this movie, especially with the budget being inflated all the way to around $2 million. The fact that they were able to pull off Terrifier 2 and all the kills with $250,000, I could not imagine what they were going to be able to do with $2 million, and that just excited the hell out of me. All right, now starting off with the positives for this movie, it's obviously going to be David Howard Thornton as Arthur Clown. Terrifier 1, Terrifier 2, same thing, no surprise. But somehow he's able to up the ante even more in this movie. He is way more comical, he's more terrifying. All his facial expressions, the way he emotes. Like there's a scene in a bar with Santa Claus and Art is walking by one of the windows of the bar and then he double takes and comes back. And he looks in the window and he sees Santa, some dude dressed up as Santa. And he's like, ooh, he's so giddy. He's so excited and happy. He runs in the bar. He steps down the stairs. He pushes these women out of the way. He's like a child on Christmas almost, thinking that that's actually Santa and just being so fucking happy. And it's just so goddamn funny, man. I mean, not even that scene in the bar with Santa Claus, but there's another scene in a dorm room where he's eavesdropping on these college students, and that is also just fucking hilarious. The other movies, he's great. Him doing his miming thing and all that, he obviously never speaks. But I think this movie is way more funny in the fact that he's almost speaking to the audience. Whenever he does his mannerisms and he'll do just a gesture, and you can hear words for some reason. You know exactly what he's saying, and he doesn't need to speak. And of course, whenever he's killing his next victim, you can just tell, even with how mean-spirited all these movies are, because they're just so over the top and he kills people just so unnecessarily. He's so happy. He loves killing people so much. And it all just comes down to David Howard Thornton's acting in this, still being able to balance the hilarious yet terrifying Arthur Clown that he is, and just another basically brilliant performance. I've heard he wants to play Joker in the new DC universe, and I mean, come on. Just give it to him now. It's over. Let this man cook, James Gunn. And Lauren Rivera is also amazing in this movie as well. She solidified herself in the second one as being an absolutely iconic final girl. One of my favorites without a doubt. And this movie, she just continues to solidify that. This movie does take place 5 years after the second one took place, so Sienna has been in and out of a psychiatric hospital. She's dealing with her trauma, all her PTSD from surviving, as one would. And pretty much the whole movie, she's just dealing with survivor's guilt. She's kind of going psychotic, understandably. She sees all her dead friends all the time. She hears voices. She has crazy fucking dreams that always wake her up in the middle of the night. She's taking pills, She's really not doing that well. And I really like how they went that route, because not only does it make us care for Sienna even more and like her even more and understand, obviously why someone would feel this way, it gets to show us another side of it, which is another big part of this movie, is the commentary on these, influencers or podcasters or whatever it is, true crime and all that, with wanting to capitalize on other people's pain and suffering just so they can get clicks and views and get all this clout. And it's just so spot on with how things are these days, with all these people trying to be influencers and all these streamers and podcasters, not caring about anything but themselves and their views. And just all these disgusting, like they say in the movie, leeches, just trying to profit off of anything that they can. And of course, the third act, the final scene, of course, there's going to be a showdown once again between Art and Sienna. And this time their fight involves a sword and a chainsaw, And it's just so fucking badass, man. I mean, and Sienna is just continuing to make a case for her being one of the best final girls of all time. I am not even kidding when I say that. She is so kick-ass. I do think this movie does do a really good job at expanding the lore as well. The second movie left us with a lot of questions, specifically with the sword and the magic powers that it seemed to have. How Sienna was stabbed in the gut with it. She heals herself. She chops Art's head off. And it never really is explained at all because then, as you all know, Art is just resurrected. His head is resurrected through Victoria Hayes. And it's just like, none of that really made sense. But I knew it would get answered eventually. And what was up with Sienna and Jonathan's dad? Why was he drawing pictures of Art in his journal before he died? Why did he go crazy? He was keeping, articles of Art's killings in there. And it just left us with a lot more questions than answers. And this movie does answer a pretty decent amount of questions that we had, specifically with the sword. We find out where it comes from, why it has its powers, but we don't necessarily know where Art comes from still. We don't know anything about his origin or anything like that, how he came to be. All we know is that he was just a serial killer. And this movie does go more supernatural at the end. And I know that might turn off some people. It doesn't necessarily turn off me because, as you know, a lot of slashers kind of always go that supernatural route. If you're going to have a franchise, if all these slashers were just regular people, besides, the Scream franchise where it's a different person every time, if you're going to have this one slasher, was he going to die every time? Is he going to somehow get away and just keep escaping? Like, he can't take any damage? Like, there always has to be an explanation to why this villain is able to survive and keep coming back. And with the supernatural route, it of course introduces demons and all these things start to come up. And I personally am excited to see where he takes it in the fourth one because the cliffhanger that we did at the end of this, it's very intriguing. And another positive for this movie is just the way the film looks. Much like the second one, it just has this 80s, VHS type vibe aesthetic to it, and it looks great. I mean, the cinematography is much better in this one, I would say. Probably because of the inflated budget, but it just fits the vibe and aesthetic so well. And it's very grainy and it just adds to the darkness of this movie. And there's just some scenes where it's like, it feels like you shouldn't be watching this. There are some scary and terrifying, unsettling scenes and you're just like, none of us in here should be watching this movie. But it gives you that feeling in the best way possible. And lastly, I've been saving it for my final positive. We all know what it is. It's all the blood, the gore, all the creativity that Damien Leone somehow keeps finding a way to up the ante onto top. And the special effects that he does, man. The $2 million budget, I think they put all of that $2 million into the special effects. Damien Leone still does it, but it just gives him more resources and it just does not disappoint. $2 million is a lot more than $250,000, which was the second one's budget. But $2 million is still pretty low for a horror movie nowadays. Usually they're around, I would say, 9 or 10 million. So I can't even imagine what Terrifier 4's budget is going to be and how it's going to look. But for 2 million, with obviously all of that going to the makeup and the prosthetics, Damien Leone is just so good. I mean, this guy he's done it for a while. He's mastered it. Everything looks so real. In Terrifier 2, there are some scenes where, as much as I love it and I will always defend the fact that they're all practical and he's doing it still, or he did it still on a $250,000 budget, but people complain and say, oh, that looked fake. That's, that wasn't real. Okay, I understand, I still love it, but I understand, there are scenes where you're like, okay, that was clearly a prop or a prosthetic or whatever it was. And there's none of that in this movie. But Damien Leone uses that $2 million very smartly. I saw it for a second time tonight and I'm still just like in shock at how real everything looks. I'm sure you've heard about it, but the shower scene, that's going to be the talk of the town. Everyone's going to want to talk about that. And my goodness, dude. I mean, the bedroom scene in the second one, still some people's favorite, still absolutely iconic, but this shower scene, man, I mean, it's just relentless. It's brutal. He does not give a fuck. And there's plenty more gruesome, gory kills in this movie to look forward to. Specifically, I also think the first scene is an absolutely perfect intro. It is iconic, it's polarizing, and it's obviously been under scrutiny. It's very controversial, but I think they handle it pretty well. I I can kind of see where people are coming from if they want to complain about that, but why go to a Terrifier movie in the fucking first place? You know what it's gonna be. And the opening scene also just does a really good job at introducing us to the Christmas atmosphere that we're going to see throughout this whole movie. Just the first and second movie took place on Halloween, and the decision to make the third one a Christmas setting with everybody, you see all the lights on the houses, it's snowing outside, everyone's like joyful. The kids are wanting to open up presents and wanting to see Santa Claus, and just seeing Art the Clown dressed as Santa Claus for basically 80% of the movie, killing and torturing all these people with his Santa hat and the hair and the beard, it's just nothing short of amazing and so much fun. And not only how the film looks, the sound design, if you were just listening to this movie and your eyes were closed, I think it would be almost just as terrifying, hearing all the blood squirt out and the guts and the bones breaking. And the chainsaw scene specifically, that chainsaw is loud as fuck. There's no music going on in that shower scene. And he's just waving the chainsaw, going after them, slicing and dicing. And it's just so intense to watch, specifically with how they make that chainsaw just unbelievably terrifying. It's all so impactful, and it just pierces your ears. And it just makes you squirm. Even if you're not squeamish, it just makes you just wince. Like that shower scene definitely gives Texas Chainsaw Massacre a run for its money. I mean, those two kills are just unimaginably brutal. Now on to the negatives for this movie. I might have one or two, maybe a few. I still think this movie is a little too long, even with it being cut down probably about 15 minutes from the second one. I still think these movies don't need to be 2 hours long. I mean, maybe just cut 10 more minutes, make it like barely over an hour 50, because just some scenes still kind of drag a little too long, and there's just some unnecessary stuff that happens that just doesn't really add to anything. And I know he wasn't in this movie as much as the first one, but Jonathan, played by Elliot Fulham, I like him as a character. I like that he's seeing his brother and that she cares about him and all this, but he's just not a good actor. Like, I don't know what else to say. I mean, everybody else in this movie was pretty fucking good. It's pretty spot on. Even the new people they introduced, the new family. I just don't think he is a very good actor at all. And every time he's on screen, his voice and just everything just kind of just takes me out of the movie. And I hate to feel that way. And one last negative that I have for this movie, it's kind of minor, but I don't know why we have 3 movies already and we still don't know or understand who or where Art the Clown came from or who he is. We have no origin story on him. And every other slasher icon that we've had, we know exactly where they came from. We know exactly who they are. And I don't know if the fourth one, they're going to change that, but it really just kind of bothers me and doesn't make sense to why he wouldn't give us that origin story. Jason, Michael, Freddy, Chucky, we all know who they were and where they came from. So I just really want to know what Art's deal is. So yeah, overall, guys, I mean, I love this movie. It's everything that I want and that I love about slashers, with all the blood, the guts, the gore, all the creative kills that they somehow seem to just step up every single movie. I love watching it all. Having Art the Clown be who he is, another icon, and just having an amazing final girl as well in Sienna. They expand the lore, they build upon the first one, and this is just a bloody, bloody good time. So I'm going to give this movie a 9 out of 10 without a doubt. Go see it in the theaters. It's way better on the big screen with all the kills. And, if you love all the first two, I think you're going to love this one just as well if you haven't seen it already. But if you don't like the first two, I definitely don't think that this movie is going to win you over in any sort of way. But still go see it. Give it a shot. So yeah, those are just my thoughts, guys. I appreciate you watching. Once again, my name is Zach. Like, subscribe, comment, do whatever you want. Let me know what your favorite kill is. And as always, I will see you on the next one.